Well, it looks like the S&P and the Dow is having a nice time today, going down about as good as the Argentina peso. Argentine peso is at about a 13% decline. Basically having a little bit of problems there, so that's what can happen with currency pretty fast. 13% decline in one day. Now, of course, the S&P and the Dow is not off that much, but I don't know, maybe it's a little bit too early for the sky to fall, but interesting that the metals are up, oil's up over $1, and hey, we have a correction, slight correction in the markets today, but that's nice, you know. There's people out there saying I don't know what I'm talking about at all. Fine. But those are people that just run blogs and basically they sit down and they rehash, you know, Alex Jones videos all day and conspiracies. But that's all they do. They don't read, they don't have any financial background, and they never will. And because they've never been in it and they don't have the education, they've never been in stuff. That's all there is to it. But anyway, you know, there's a lot of garbage on the internet. That's what I have to say. And you know, I get flack every time, sometimes even mention anything about Iran, but I'll state this again. You know, I'm beginning to look at, you know, Islamic religion as a political movement more than a religion. It's about either destroying or converting the infidels over, and I'm just calling it out for what the hell it is. So, you know, when I see that our president of our country will actually enforce Sharia law before he'd ever enforce the Constitution of the United States, I say this guy ought to be thrown the hell out. People voted for this guy because he was black. A lot of people did. And you know, that's a freaking problem. Because they weren't looking at what the hell the guy was really about. And what it turns out is, he's working for the white establishment all the way. They own him hook, line, and sinker, and they're playing all kinds of games from all kinds of angles. Just destroying the United States. But anyway, let's get on with this update, because I'm going to tell you again, I think the markets are going to get clobbered. You know, the actual S&P and the Dow, and it's going to come about where it's at least expected. You know, maybe today isn't going to be the big deal. That's where it's going to start dropping off like a stone. But you know, you could wake up one day and all of a sudden have, you know, a 10 or 20% correction inside of no time. Now, it's not going to maybe as radical as commodities, but the S&P can correct, and it's historically been proven that it can correct that much, especially when the PE ratios are this high. So, you know, I'd like to talk about some other investment. I always put these links down on the bottom, as that's Palladium. Actually, you know, they always talk about silver being a poor man's gold, right? But you know, I always considered Palladium the poor man's gold. You know, first off, even just look at the similarity between palladium and platinum. Platinum, if you take the average over so many last couple decades, platinum is 1.4 times the price of gold on an average. Now, you know, not that long ago it was below the price of gold, and now it's a little bit above the price of gold. But typically when things are running smooth, it's twice the price of gold. But there is not much difference between platinum and palladium in as far as usage goes. Maybe for jewelry, platinum has a lot more luster. Palladium is not as you know shiny and that type of stuff. But as far as industrial use is really where actually the differences aren't that much different. And that's about, like, if there's an area that platinum can be used for industry, the substitute pretty much usually is palladium, and vice versa. They should be running about the same. They should be. Ultimately, palladium actually is even more rare than platinum, and also it's the only thing that can convert. It helps with hydrogen purification, hydrogen storage, hydrogen production. It's going to actually be something that may even be worth more than platinum, and platinum should be worth twice as much as gold. So, you know, when people are talking about buy gold, you know, I always thought about palladium. So, I mean, that's just how I've been thinking. You know, I've been thinking that way for years. It's done okay, but I think it's got a hell of a lot more room to move upward, and, you know, people aren't thinking about it too much. So, I always put the links for the Palladium on the bottom of in the information box and all the silver videos they do. Always put that stuff. Now, am I a palladium dealer? No. Do I work for a broker? No, no. I think it's a smart idea. Actually, I think is actually going to push the price of palladium up is probably going to be through the Russians. They got the biggest interest in doing it. About 40% of the palladium supplies in the world are mined in Russia, with the vast majority of that 40% coming from Norilsk mine in northern Siberia. So, you know, if they got a real financial incentive to really can push the price way the hell up there, and I think they will. Somehow they did it back in 2001 when they pushed the rumor that there was going to be no more palladium stockpiles remaining. And every year it seems like they put out this rumor that the palladium stockpiles are dwindling. I really don't think they're that dwindled but I think they're going to have a way to push it up through those type of rumors. And, you know, if you look at what's going on in the mining companies in the United States, like first off, in the United States, you got Stillwater, they produce palladium, and you also have North American Palladium in Canada that produces palladium. But North American Palladium in Canada, I heard, has had problems with management. And that's one of the problems with them. But looking at all the, you know, it's not the only thing they mine. And you look at the price suppression of other metals out there, they're not doing well and they're not profitable. So it's like you're not going to see a lot of new mines come out to, you know, like in other words, you know, if we're talking about a squeeze in silver or something like that because, you know, the mines are shutting down, oh, what can really happen with palladium? Oh, that could really get squeezed big time because there's not too many places it comes from. The other place is South Africa or around South Africa, and they've had all these freaking problems just like the same. Well, they talk about the platinum mines having a problem, but basically those are the same mines that produce the palladium. They got different type of mining operation. Actually, palladium and platinum come from the same ore in South Africa or around that area. In Russia, it's really coming from the nickel mining in Norilsk. It's a little bit different, but still, they're still producing. South Africa produces pretty close to 40% of the world's palladium, and Russia produces, I think, about 42% of the world's palladium, with most of it coming from that one mine. So, you know, if there's a problem where they need more palladium, because, you know, the only reason these prices are so low is because they supposedly have these stockpiles that had been stockpiled from the 30s all the way up to the time, you know, they started using more palladium in industry back in the late 70s. Through all the mining that they did for all those years. They were using gulag slave labor. They weren't paying anybody. This was all during, well, it was not all during the time of Stalin, because Stalin died in the early 50s, but it was all during the communist Soviet Union. And when they had the gulag slave labor used to mine all that palladium in Norilsk, Russia, you know, that was basically coming out of the ground free. And they were just stockpiling and stockpiling and stockpiling and stockpiling. That's why there's a lot of it around, relatively speaking, to demand, and that is why the price is low. But once they've been rumoring that those stockpiles have been dwindling, I personally think they're going to play a game like they did back in 2001, is that they will say that they're out, and then it'll drive the price way the hell up. You know, it could be some astronomically high price. I mean, you look at rudidium. What happened to rudidium? You know, a couple $100 an ounce to $10,000 an ounce. I mean, palladium could go to thousands of dollars an ounce. You know, all the theories they talk about with silver being a tiny market. When you talk about palladium, that's an infinitesimal tiny market. That's what it is. It's that small. It's that small. So, in other words, not that much can really move that market really fast. And who the hell knows? And like I said, with the problems they're having in Stillwater, the problems they're having in North American Palladium, which is in Canada, you're not going to, and it's not going to ever even come remotely close to the global demand. Plus the problems they're having in the mines in South Africa. Figure it out. You know, that's where this metal could actually spike to some unheard of prices. I don't know this for a fact, But, and the problem is, I don't know how high it can go. You know, I would think, you know, if something doubles or triples, that's a hell of a lot. But you know, with palladium, it can go even more than that. It can go more than that. Just remember what happened in 2001 when they said they were out of, you know, basically running out of stockpiles. Remember what happened. It skyrocketed to 4 times the price of gold. And, you know, considering that people are saying $3,000 gold is like pretty conservative for what could possibly happen. Palladium could be, you know, $8,000 an ounce. But you're going to have to catch it at the right time. And I don't know if it's going to go that high. That's the thing. I don't know how high is high. See, when things take off, they seem to take a life of their own. That's the problem. You know, bubbles, once they start going, they take a life of their own, and they go way beyond the fundamentals. And that's where, you know, should you sell or should you not sell? Those kind of things, you know, nobody really freaking knows. You know, but I have a good suspicion that palladium's actually going to do the best out of all the metals in the future. So just keep that in mind. So we're seeing some pressure on the Dow and everything like that today. Now, you know, I think the oil prices are going to be what's going to really, I've always been saying this, I think the oil prices are what's going to lead the charge with gold and silver. And it's probably going to be over war in the Middle East. And, you know, I would hope that, you know, people don't realize, you know, that Iran is blowing smoke up everybody's butts when they're talking about, you know, we're only buying, we're pushing for nuclear electricity when they're saying that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, maybe you could say, you know, oh, maybe they should have nuclear weapons or whatever. But, you know, any regime like that that's so lopsided and like either you're an infidel or you're not, and you better convert or the hell with you. In other words, if they got the power to freaking kill your ass because you're an infidel, they'll do it. They'll do it. So, you know, I have to blatantly state, and I don't give a damn if this is popular or not, I have to blatantly state, they are trying to get nuclear weapons for evil purposes. And it's easier to stop them now. Period. It is. It is a hell of a lot easier now to stop them now. You know, it's not, you know, I could say it's a war over oil. It's not a war over oil. It isn't even a war over the freaking oil borscht. You know, because the United States could always pull some other, the elite can pull some other bullshit anyway. You know, like I said, they're probably going to go from oil to water. You know, so they'll back the currency up with water or some crap like that. That's what they're pushing. They'll back it up with something else. They'll back it up with gold. You know why they'll back it up with gold? Because they're buying it up right now. Only the fools are the ones that are dumping it. You know, that's what happened. And, you know, people say, oh, yeah, I'm wrong about that. Fine. Fine. I don't really give a shit. Because, you know, this tells me that if I make out like a fat rat, I ain't going to be too generous, because there's a lot of people out there that have been telling me I've been wrong. So to hell with them. That's what I have to say, right? To hell with them, right? Anyway, but just remember, when this stuff happens with Iran, that's going to lead the charge for not just oil, but it's going to be gold and silver. And, you know, if you really want to dig into everything that goes on with a war and why a war starts, I could say any freaking war out there was bullshit, all of them. But I think that country, if they got nuclear weapons first, and they got nuclear weapons, they're going to use them. They're not trying to get electricity. They got more freaking oil and natural gas per capita than any place in the freaking world. It would take them 100 years before they freaking ran out. And they don't hardly have any uranium at all. No uranium. And one of their big trading partners, India, has a lot of thorium. Do they want to make thorium reactors that don't make nuclear weapons? Nope. They're safer. Do they want those kind? Nope. Anyway. You know, people could do this all you want, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm sticking with what I think. I ain't out here to kiss the ass of the crowd or whatever the hell they think. Because I'm telling you right now, this deal is going to actually, it's going to be a just war. I just hope they get their asses kicked fast and we got as few casualties as there possibly can be. Although that's not going to be their will. Oh, they'd love to kill all the infidels as much as possible, but no way in hell, buddy. No way in hell. Because I'm going to say this right now. The big problem we got is we got a president that basically would rat out our own military before they struck and probably tell Iran indirectly what the plans are. That's the big problem. That's where it might not go well. And I think there's a lot of people ought to look at that really hard, because this guy, I don't know where his loyalty is. It ain't to the United States. It's not to the Constitution. You know, he bows down to the King of Saudi. And he'd enforce Sharia law before he'd ever freaking enforce the Constitution of the United States. So that's my silver update. Enjoy it. Goodbye.